Today we're going to be talking about soil, and soil is the basic for good gardening. So we're going to talk about some basics of soil, hopefully give you some techniques and some little remedies for maybe some soil problems you might have and make you a better gardener. So the first thing we want to look at is our soil as it lays, where we're going to check it at. Here we're in a lawn situation, and you can see the grass is a little bit sparse in this area. So the first thing you want to look at is why is this area sparse? Is it a shade factor? Is it a soil factor? Is it water? Is it fertilizer? Insect damage? You know, kind of run those things through your mind and try and you know, eliminate those as you go through. We'll take a sample here. We'll make just enough to where we can get an idea of what's going on in the soil here. We can see we got some roots that are coming down in the soil. This is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 4 inches deep. And we have roots coming through, but feeling the soil, it's got a little bit of moisture, but it's not real wet. The root system on this is not real heavy. We do have some roots coming through, but again, not a real high population. You can see the soil is fairly dry, so this might be an area where it just needs a little bit more water. Texture of the soil is somewhat of a sand, not a pure sand, so I'm sure nutrient and water moves through there very fast. So this situation here, we'd want to water on a more often basis, maybe not as much water, but do it on a more often basis, maybe every 3 to 4 days, and put somewhere about 1 inch of water on to get it through the soil. So that'll help there. Again, being a sand, fertilizers move through the soil very fast. So if we're watering fairly often, fertilizer can be leached through the soil. So we want to put our fertilizer on in very light amounts, but also put it on more often. And that way the grass can utilize what nutrient is there and not be leached out beyond the root system area. If this happened to be a clay soil, then the opposite would be true. The clay soil will hold water for a long period of time. It's going to take more water to be put on the surface in order to wet down deeper, but with the clay soil, the nutrients will stay in the soil for a longer period of time, so you don't need to fertilize as often, and you don't need to water as often because the moisture also stays in the soil for a longer period of time. So when we're looking at the soil, as far as moisture, we want to put somewhere about 1 inch of water on in a sandy soil, and somewhere about 1.5 to 2 inches of moisture in a clay soil. The way we can check the moisture is by shoving a screwdriver into the ground, and about where it starts getting hard to push in, this shows where our moisture level is. As we see here, we have about 4 to 4.5 inches of moisture, which is all right. We'd like to see probably somewhere close to 6 inches for a lawn grass, and that way we're getting the roots down deeper, and the grass has a much better chance of withstanding drought type periods, and then utilize that fertilizer that you've been putting on. The other thing the soil has a lot of is microorganisms. So we have bacteria, fungi, insects that are all helping to break the soil down, but they're also helping to break nutrients down, make them more available to the plant. So we want to make sure that we do have a good, healthy microorganism population in the soil. So we want to encourage that in the use of organics. A lot of times our grass clippings, when we cut them, we let them fall. That's good because that helps to add organic matter to the soil. If the grass clippings are carried off, taken to the trash, then that organic matter is not added back to the soil. So we want to make sure that we keep a good organic matter in the soil, and that'll keep a healthy microorganism population in the soil. So we want to be careful of that and encourage that. Another thing that can happen sometimes, I'm going to take a hose here and just kind of wet this down. What we want to do is kind of check after we've wet, is to see, sometimes our soil will get what we call hydrophobic, and when we dig in the soil it didn't absorb in very good. That was kind of a quick blast, but we can see the water's not moving into the soil very quick. So that's when we have a hydrophobic soil, and the use of a surfactant or some kind of soap solution will help to push that through. So if you notice your water beating up on the surface of the soil, that's a sign that you have a hydrophobic soil. So you want to correct that, otherwise you're not getting water to the root system of the plants that you need. So hopefully those have given you some tips on how to improve your soil and have a healthier soil for the plants that you're trying to grow.